The year is 1885 on the hog-back ridge called the Narrows. To the north is the mighty Brazos River. To the south, the Wichita. Thousands of scattered buffalo bones announce the end of an era. From his dugout, a cowboy sees a lone Comanche on a bluff, watching while longhorns graze behind barbed wire fences. The old Indian turns his horse west. Soon after, covered wagons wound their way across the newly formed Knox Prairie. There, a man named Reuben Munday agreed to take the postmaster position, so Munday was officially recognized in 1894. Businesses started springing up in West Munday at that time in anticipation of the coming railroad. But after surveys showed the tracks would be built about 1,000 yards east, new businesses were built there, and a feud between East and West Town began. Walter Cousins, the town's first mayor, penned these words: "Knowed Munday when she was baby, or rather when she was twins, and the fightingest pair of infants that ever got their wind. The surname of these infants was Munday, that, supposing you could guess. Called one of these twins East Munday, the other's name was West." To end the feud, a local parson devised a plan to move West Town so that it would have equal access to train passenger business. The East Town residents agreed to pay for teams of mules and steam traction engines to literally pull the buildings down the road to create one town. Pulling together for the common good has been the community's mantra since then. Margaret Cousins, the first mayor's daughter, left Munday and graduated from the University of Texas in 1926, a rare feat for women from the Texas prairie. She then moved to New York City to work for several magazines, including managing editor of Good Housekeeping and McCall's. Miss Cousins also wrote for popular magazines, television, and a feature film starring Jane Wyman. She said this about her hometown: "Munday did not emerge as a typical little western town. A certain sophistication is intrinsic in my recollections of it. I think this was because many of the people who settled it had originated in the Old South and had brought their standards and interest with them. My mother and father's friends were interested in music, literature, social life, fashion, and so on. If cultural and performing arts did not come to Munday, they went to them. My mother and father took me to Fort Worth to hear Caruso and Pagliacci, which involved long rides on 2 railroads and a night in my first hotel. I also heard the San Carlo Opera Company and the Wichita Falls Opera House singing Il Trovatore before I was 5 years old." Mrs. Cousins also writes about her father's interest in Shakespeare, Mark Twain, and other classics, along with his knowledge of Latin. Many of those books were commonly located on the shelves next to food staples at the first general store. Margaret, like many other local pioneers, revered education and the arts. That legacy would set Munday apart from most towns. After leaving Munday, she wrote, "Some portion of Munday went with us and stayed with us. Courage, optimism, responsibility, the gift of affection, the memory of happiness." Munday's fine arts legacy can be traced to its first school, organized in 1887. By 1906, there were 4 fine arts faculty members, a music and an art studio in the town, and the People's Theater was a community favorite. Each summer, the Munday Cultural Affairs would host chautauquas, which were lectures, symphonies, drama, and poetry recitations. But in spite of this optimism, the wounds of Civil War were still deep among Munday's first settlers. Yet Munday's pioneers continued to pull together. Reuben Munday had fought for the North. Local blacksmith shop owner Thomas Lane fought for the South. Though bitter enemies in the recent past, they turned their attention to the future. They donated land to establish the town square, and it was their children, Olga Lee Lane and Jim Munday, who would marry and bring the 2 families together, now extending 6 generations. A third Munday founding father was Dr. James Lee. He moved to Munday in 1891. Many of his children became prominent citizens, but one of the most beloved was his daughter, Shelley. At a time when most young women were interested in finding a husband, Shelley was content to study art. When people asked Miss Shelley why she never married, she explained, "In those days, a young woman needed 12 quilts in her hope chest in order to be a proper bride. I had no time to make quilts. I was too busy painting." Her mother was dismayed at the thought of an old maid, but Dr. Lee encouraged her to follow her passion. He believed in her so much that he allowed her to attend art school in New York, Cincinnati, and Chicago at a time when it was very unusual for a woman to attend college, even in her home state. Miss Shelley taught art to Munday's children for generations. People who drive through the small town of Munday might not be immediately impressed. The downtown business district covers only 5 blocks. There's not even a red light anymore. But look closer, and you'll discover sculpture gardens, murals, and 4 parks. There's a thriving dance studio. Beautiful streetlights donated by citizens line the streets. Even the artwork on the town's overpass was a collaborative art project that won a national award. Munday has also won the Governor's Community Achievement Award twice. Munday's mantra, "Pulling together for the common good," describes their history and defines them as a community. Their motto, "Munday, small but mighty," demonstrates their hope for the future.